Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
When you think of late night TV, you're not thinking of talk shows. You're thinking Toonami.
The King of Podcasts radio network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
What I really wanted to cover to start off the program tonight was anime, because I did see the Demon Slayer movie, which was to a full house in the RPX at my Regal Theater. But then we had the Jimmy Kimmel thing pop up on Monday through Wednesday. And now we're at the point where this has become a pretty big story, and it's another crux in the area of late night television. But look, I don't care about the political part. And as for Jimmy Kimmel, he shouldn't be losing his show. It doesn't make a difference at all anyway. It's just a matter of time before all these late night shows go by the wayside. Because network television can't afford to keep these shows at 11:30 at night. It just doesn't work for all of them. Maybe 20 years ago. But look, we used to have all those different shows that were on late night. But social media, that's changed everything. You know, and then also cable television has also changed a lot. And what's funny, I remember thinking about all the late night shows that used to be around, even after Arsenio left. And you still had Letterman and Leno. You had Vibe. You had Keenen Ivory Wayans. You did Magic Johnson. I mean, you had some people come out there to do late night shows, and they tried. John Sally. It was funny. But, you know, that kind of thing is done. Let's just be honest with each other. In the media, this is one area of traditional media that's going the way of the soap opera. Okay? Game shows, not so popular on network television or for people to watch on television in general. When you're thinking about soap operas, those are all gone. You only have a handful left. You used to have, what was it, roughly 10 soap operas that were on throughout the daytime. Daytime's a different lineup. And even on top of that, most of your local stations aren't even running daytime talk shows. What talk shows are out there? Tamron Hall, Jennifer Hudson? I don't know if there's that much of an audience for that. There's no more Drew Barrymore, right? And Kelly Clarkson. I can't think of who else is out there. There's no Rachel Ray out there. There's nobody else is replaced. There's not a lot of talk shows out there. That kind of format's not on television. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The podcast format is taken away from a lot of different programming options. And on top of that, late night television is just not a thing anymore. Remember, we've talked about the fact that celebrities don't go and do the normal rounds of just the media scrums, right? Or the junkets, or go on late night TV. They're not doing that anymore. They're going on other programs because that's what they're doing. They're going on podcasts or going on other programs just to get themselves out there. You know, they go on Hot Ones. They go on, you know, the one that has Kevin Hart in an ice bath, right? Those kind of shows. We don't have late night talk shows that really matter anymore. I mean, the one thing that's still left on late night is Saturday Night Live, which is amazing. That's held up because there's not much comedy out there. And this is one of the last bastions of comedy that is left. So I can appreciate that part. But late night TV, it costs too much money. And let's be honest as well. When you think about what David Letterman used to be able to command for doing the late show, I mean, the fact that they gave Stephen Colbert as much as they did for a show that's not even come close to what David Letterman was. And we don't need to go and compare to Johnny Carson. He was one of the best, okay? There's no way to go and compare to him. Let's just go to Conan O'Brien when he hosted Tonight Show. And the step that has been taken down when Jimmy Fallon took over. It's just the way it is. And the thing is, just like any show on network television, look, you're going to be susceptible to the FCC rules. But if it's not the FCC rules, because they've always been very lax for a number of years, like when's the last time you heard anybody getting fined for any kind of obscene, vulgar language, anything that was insensitive? Never. The FCC doesn't do anything. So now that as an FCC commissioner wants to go and start talking, but it was all talk. Because before anything else happened, It's the way it's always been done with network television. Listen, when you have a show that is controversial and affiliate stations are ready to go ahead and pull back on a show because of bad ratings, or it's not benefiting what people are watching, okay? When a show's doing bad or there's something offensive about it, then you have shows that will go off the air. Listen, I can give you shows of different examples of TV shows that came on and, they were chastised and there were affiliates that didn't want to carry the shows. I think of Soap. I think of the Monkees initially, affiliates that want to carry that show. The TV show, The Monkees. And then you think about, I think of Pink Lady and Jeff, right? When it's bad ratings. Hey, affiliates don't want to carry the show. When Pat Sajak had a late night show and it was doing bad and other CBS affiliated stations wanted to get out of it. I mean, there's a lot of times where you have other shows that are supposed to be going to be on network TV and they don't get picked up by affiliates or they go to some secondary outlet because sometimes the affiliates have a lot of power. For ABC and Disney, they can't afford to have the affiliates come under fire with them. This is something that's not been talked about at all. But Berkshire Hathaway, the company that Warren Buffett owns. You didn't know this. They actually did have one television station that they own right now, WPLG Channel 10 in Miami. And a couple of months ago, WPLG dropped its affiliation with ABC because it was time for negotiation. And the station that had, 57 some odd years as an ABC affiliate in Miami, Florida, because of the fact that they did not want to go ahead and spend the exorbitant amount of money of increases that ABC Network was asking the affiliate to go ahead and pay. They said no. They declined, and they could not negotiate on a deal. So Channel 10 in Miami dropped their ABC affiliation. They're going to go with local programming. They're going to go with their local news outfit, and they're going to run more hours of it in place of the network programming because they're going to make more money on local news than they can. And the other thing is that the Berkshire Hathaway folks did not want to go ahead and have to lay off any workers as a result because they wanted to go ahead and be faithful to the news team, to the news division. Their local news programming, which has been making good money for them. So they're willing to go and say, hey, you know what? We don't need an ABC anymore because of how much of that programming is actually worthwhile for them. I mean, we're talking about in the morning, they're not worried about Good Morning America. They can run news. They're not worried about The View. They're not worried about General Hospital or another Good Morning America or Good Afternoon America. They don't care about any of that. They're not worried about what the ABC network is offering in prime time or the sports offerings. Not worried about it. And then what happens is that Sunbeam Communications, which owns WSVN Channel 7, took over the affiliation. But obviously because it's a new affiliate, they got a better deal. And so now Channel 7 is carrying the ABC network on their secondary HD channel and on Channel 18, which is the low power UHF channel. And, it's available on cable stations, so people can still watch ABC if they're watching on cable. I don't know how well it does when you're trying to watch in Miami ABC on your rabbit ears, but you can. But because of the exorbitant amount of money that the affiliates have to go and pay out, they do not want to worry about shows that are underperforming, and they don't want to worry about shows that are disruptive, that are causing problems. And yes, the leadership of Nexstar and Sinclair, they probably are more conservative than they are liberal or any other sense. But listener complaints came to these stations. Some of them are small market stations. You know what? Social media amplified this message. Listen, he only gets 1.5 million viewers, Jimmy Kimmel, compared to Colbert, who gets more of an audience. I think Colbert gets 2 million viewers average per night. And then Jimmy Fallon gets 1.1 million viewers. The last check I saw. But with Jimmy Kimmel, I mean, he was just in his own little ground. I'm actually surprised that, if anybody was watching it live or catching it when it was brand new, there wasn't that many people that were watching television at that time of night that would not want to be listening to him or watching him for what he wants to say, especially his monologue. Because if you're in a political persuasion, you don't watch his show. You don't care. Unless you want to torture yourself because you want to hear somebody that, talks about things and people that you like that they don't like. I don't think anybody does that too much. So now you're at the point where there are media watchdogs out there, okay, on both sides of the political aisle. Media watchdogs came out on social media. Hey, they are willing to go, this is the part where social media can be also very much the doxing culture, right? Or a cancel culture in a way. Yeah, sure. Because they were waiting to find something on somebody, especially now after what happened with Charlie Kirk. Everybody wants to go ahead, and there's like a fever pitch of like, if anybody has said something, and people get the chance to go ahead and out that person for what they said, they're going to do it. Now, I'll say this, it goes on either side. If you're saying something offensive or obscene or anything that's just, of violent rhetoric or language, and, there was something about the stature, how big a megaphone that you have, there is something to be said about like understanding why those people are going to get punished for what happens to them. For me, it's not my fight. Okay. I am a free speech advocate. And so my thing is that this isn't a free speech issue. Okay. Jimmy Kimmel, his network is licensing to all these different network affiliates this show. It's on public airways. At the end of the day, these are public airways, so whatever he says, he's susceptible to it. He has to be held on grounds of language, of content, and that's anybody else that's on network TV. If he was online, doesn't matter. If he was on cable, doesn't matter. But it's network TV. So he's just in a place where that kind of stuff happens. Now, he wants to go ahead and stick with the fact that all his content is going to be on that show at the time. And what could have actually been done as well, if the affiliates were going to be upset, could have come back with some kind of a mea culpa and bring things back to full circle. And then he could probably still continue to do the kind of stuff he always does. But again, I'm the opinion where if you're a podcaster out there, if you're hosting programming, if you have a public forum, Tom Likas has always said it, and this is where I followed it from him because he was very smart about this. You can't be doing content. You should not have to do content to where it comes back at you and you have to apologize for it. And I heard that message a long time ago. And so when I got into podcasting, hosting the content, and even before social media, because I heard Tom Likas at that time make this message, and this has held strong. You have to be careful with what you say so that you do not have to apologize or retract what you say. If you're coming in with information that's accurate and correct, it's not hard for his 10 writers, Jimmy Kimmel, to go ahead and report the right thing. But the problem is that it wasn't the fact that he was being hateful. That's normal. That's just run of the mill. That's his modus operandi. And if you go watch that show, you're one of those 1.5 million viewers, you know what to expect. He's not changing. It's who he is. And I could have cared less if he was going on doing his show like he did. It didn't make a difference to me. I don't find myself going to those programs. I got other stuff to watch. I got TikTok to watch, and I get a lot of entertainment off of that, or a lot of YouTube stuff. But the thing is, these media watchdogs are able to go ahead and look for any little thing they can find to use for an attack or to use for clickbait. And it didn't take much time for what he said on Monday night on his monologue to spread out the ether, right? And then when he says it, the conservative side outrage like crazy. You can call it feigned, you can call it what you want, but the outrage was there. They contacted the ABC affiliates, whichever their local stations are. And Nexstar, I don't think they were going to be provoked to do this kind of thing unless there was an outcry from their audience. But then it's a domino effect. Once the affiliates start realizing, oh crap, we better do something about this. We got to get on top of this because we can't lose advertisers. We can't lose viewers. The pressure from network affiliates is very strong. So let's go into the actual story from the New York Times I'm going to read from. when it came to Disney management, Bob Iger and his team, time was running out. And this is the thing that was a really big deal, because this could have been nipped in the butt. Jimmy Kimmel did not have to go back out, but there's a lot of reasons why this was not going to go the right direction. And the truth was, Jimmy Kimmel, at the end of the day, should be thanking the network, because his monologue, whatever happened, he can go ahead and retract and come back on. But the thing, and he said it on, typical shows as well. Like if he was to make a mistake, he would apologize for it. He said it publicly. But ABC Network was actually trying to keep this from getting out of hand, because Jimmy Kimmel apparently did not plan to apologize. He was going to double down on what he said. He was going to try to add context to it. And the network was looking at things might be getting worse if they did not jump in, because they don't want to cancel the show. He's locked in until May 2026. The network season has started, and they have to go. They don't want to be scrambling around to put other programming on because of this. They don't have a backup plan for late night. When they didn't have Jimmy Kimmel Live to air last night, they ran Celebrity Family Feud, because that was a last minute decision. They had nothing else to go and put on. So they chose that. But people that are watching on late night television, there's still an audience out there that wants and expects to listen and watch it late night. And remember, Jimmy Kimmel just came back from vacation. And they don't have any, and obviously I guess they don't have anybody as a backup guest they could bring on, or as a host that could come on as a guest host right away that could have taken over the show because of what happened. I'm actually surprised they didn't even do that, but they don't have that kind of thing anymore. So as Jimmy Kimmel is ready to tape his Wednesday edition of his late night show in Hollywood at 4:30 p.m., had an opening monologue that would address a cascading political firestorm head on. He was going to address it on the Wednesday monologue. And so Bob Iger and Dana Walden, head of television at ABC, were hearing from skittish advertisers along with the affiliates and employees who had begun receiving threatening messages. And when the team reviewed what Jimmy Kimmel was going to remark on his show, remember, this was all done in the process. Outrage from the affiliates, outrage from advertisers, employees getting threatening messages, a lot of heat coming on. At the least, Dana Walden, Bob Iger said, you know what? The team needs to find out, what is Jimmy going to say on the show tonight? They wanted to find out. And all they wanted to find out was, are you going to say something that's going to cool things off about what you said? Are you going to try to mea culpa it, or are you going to double down? And he had the plan to go farther. That was the plan. So they didn't cancel the show. People have been misconstruing that it's not been canceled. It could get canceled, but it's not canceled right now. They did exactly what they did with The View. When The View got the issues with what was being commented on that program, that show went indefinitely suspended. But, it was also where the show got brought back for the new fall season. And now it's back, and no feathers have been ruffled so far on that program. I don't know if it's gotten more incendiary as it has. I think it's just the show that it's always been the show, pretty much. So Jimmy Kimmel Live, they decided to go and take the show dark. And I don't know what they're going to be doing in terms of what they're going to go and fill the time slot with for their affiliates, but they decided to go and do that route. So as New York Times reports, Jimmy Kimmel, in fact, was not fired. ABC pulled this show indefinitely, quote unquote, but network executives on Thursday are still hoping to find a path for the late night star to return to the airwaves soon. They don't want to make this a long thing. They just want to be able to get past the news cycle. So to me, they would probably have to wait until after the funeral of Charlie Kirk on Sunday to go along with it. Maybe sometime next week they could try as early as that to try to bring the show back. But they have to address the situation, whether it's the network or they're going to have the host do something to keep face and keep doing his show. Because for Jimmy Kimmel, it's a matter of, he's been doing that show for so many years. What's it been, 15 years plus? So the thing is, Actually been longer than that, hasn't it? It's been 20 years, right? For Jimmy Kimmel, it's like, okay, do you want to keep doing your show? You're going to have to find a way to get past this hump right here. And that doesn't mean you have to go and rest on your laurels and say, okay, you can't keep doing the stuff that you've been doing before. Trashing certain people that you want to go and trash doesn't mean you can't stop doing that. But you got to figure out how to go and get yourself around this issue right here. And I don't know what that's going to be. But what is interesting is the fact that we actually saw the local affiliate stations actually attest to the national networks, and the networks responded. They actually complied. Or actually, you could say they bended the knee, but either which way. If the affiliates have a problem with something, yeah, ABC has to go ahead and respond. They can't just sit on deaf ears, because then these affiliates will come back to the table and they will not renew. Because like I said, the threat that Channel 10 created, that could happen. It's a precedent. And other television stations, if they feel like their affiliation right now with a network is not working in their best interest, they can drop out. Now, one of the other areas that it's got to be discussed as well is that at the same time that Stephen Colbert was let go, it was told that his show was not going to be renewed at the end of next season, or the end of this season, the 2025-2026 season. Once it's gone, they're not replacing it. That late night programming, I don't know if the time slot goes back to the affiliates or what they're going to do, but that's the plan. There is no plan for a late night show on CBS after that. And the thing is, the 12:30 show also got canceled. Taylor Tomlinson's been out, for a while now, and that show got canceled. And then they never brought that show back. They never brought anything else back. The networks gave the affiliate time slot, the time slot back to the affiliates. So Nexstar, they're the owner of local TV stations that came in here. They have 265 TV stations, 44 states. And that's what the size of them would be if they were able to go and close an ongoing $6.2 billion merger with Tecna, another television network owner of TV networks, or TV stations, excuse me. So there's some discussion about why Kimmel is going to be dropped, not besides the fact that it might be the affiliates and these stations that want to go and merger with another group of TV stations. That's one thing. The other thing that's also been speculated is the sports aspect. Awful Announcing put out a story about did Disney have an NFL deal in mind when pulling Jimmy Kimmel? Well, because Brandon Carr, the SEC chairman, has actually done some things when it comes to his leveraging in the sports media world. Earlier this year, Brandon Carr publicly pressured Comcast to renew a deal with the New York area regional sports channel Yes Network on favorable terms for Yes. Now, Comcast has been pushing regional sports networks to go more premium, expensive tiers on the Xfinity cable packages, or drop the channels entirely if they refused. So the Yes channel, which broadcasts New York Yankees baseball, they were looking to avoid this kind of problem, so they cozied up to the FCC with a relationship that Yankees team president Randy Levine had with Donald Trump to work on trying to get this worked out. Brendan Carr publicly pressured Comcast to get a deal done or risk retribution in the form of politically motivated lawsuits and coercive regulatory tactics that the Trump administration has made it a hallmark in its dealings with media companies. So Comcast would eventually reach a temporary deal to keep Yes Network on the more inexpensive tier throughout the remainder of the baseball season. And then the offseason, a new deal could be struck. So you see what happens here in the process. Yes, Brandon Carr made comments threatening to do something, take action on the behalf of the FCC against ABC about the Jimmy Kimmel show, Jimmy Kimmel Live. So he urges local station groups to pull Kimmel's programming. Those same local station groups, depending on the FCC, to renew their licenses and want to consolidate with one another in a manner that requires FCC approval, they bow to Brendan Carr, and Kimmel's show gets preempted. And the Disney indefinitely suspends the show. Now, Disney also has a mega deal with the NFL that will require regulatory approval in the Trump administration before it can proceed. So, as a mea culpa, Kimmel might be a sacrificial lamb, they're saying. So media observers are already saying that late night TV is already on its deathbed. This is quantifiably absolutely true. CBS ending Stephen Colbert's late night show in March, reportedly losing around $50 million a year. The economics of late night are no longer clear cut. It's unlikely that any late night programming is breaking, even from a purely financial perspective. The shows do not command the viewership that justifies the immense salaries and production budgets. Whether the prestige of airing a late night TV show and the halo effect that comes with it is valuable enough for networks to continue producing them is debatable. What's not debatable is that these shows are more vulnerable than ever. No longer a spreadsheet to point that justifies their existence. Their value is opaque. I couldn't agree more with this. The late night format, there's just a change in programming because of the financial landscape right now for network TV. All these major companies, they tried to go ahead and go to streaming to go ahead and make up what they're losing on network TV. Now they're trying to go back to network TV and create a hybrid so they can make money off the networks and get back to making some money on the streaming, but both of them kind of help each other out. Whatever it takes, by whatever means necessary, to make the profits they need. They go on to say, if that's the financial position of late night TV and a vindictive administration begins targeting your show when you need the administration, that same administration to approve a multi-billion-dollar deal with the biggest sports league in the country, the decision-making becomes very easy. But let's make this point clear as well. You don't get this kind of flack if you're not poking the bear either. Okay? I'm not saying anything about that you shouldn't be able to poke the bear or make the comments that you want. Again, free speech. But you poke the bear, you're going to get the claws. That's what happens here. You tease the snake's going to come back and bite you. That's all that's going to happen. ESPN Chairman Jimmy Pitaro is avoiding answering a question. He actually avoided that question about what to do here with the NFL deal. He was talking with Axios' Sarah Fisher and could not ask a question about when Jimmy Kimmel was pulled off air to help win regulatory approval for a pending NFL deal. Did not say. There are other reasons why this is going on. Let's just make that clear too. That's just the way it is. But in closing about this, I'm saying to myself, I did not expect, that he was going to get canceled. I think the ABC is trying to keep this show on, and they got to go ahead and get past this storm of controversy, and they might be able to keep the show on the air. Because I don't think it's going to, for them to try to go ahead and just cancel the show outright, I don't think they want to do that. They still have an invested interest in him, and it would just look bad to go and just drop him just like that. And I don't know if Disney or ABC are looking to would even replace that time slot with another late night talk show. Probably not. Because there's nobody in the bullpen to do any late night talk shows ready to go, let alone the game shows, let alone any soap operas. Those kind of shows, as that story from Awful Announcing says, it costs too much money now. The thing is, the networks are not willing to go and invest any kind of money like that. The scripted programming, they're not picking up scripted programming from various movie studios or TV studios. They're doing it in-house. All of them are. And then they use that content for their streaming services and wherever else they want to go and distribute. But they're not putting the money out there like they used to. They're not spending the kind of money that they did on scripted programming. They're not putting that kind of money out. They're not going to do that money anymore on a late night program, and that's for sure. And what they are going to put money into is sports, live events. That's going to make them money. So the networks are going to be relying on that more than ever. And they will pick programming that will be easier for them to go ahead and produce, cheaper to produce, reality shows, things like that. They're going to just make it much easier that way. That's going to be their preference. I'm honestly surprised we have all these shows that are still around now, but the landscape could be changing a lot very soon. Because what could very well happen is, I mean, if things don't come out well for Jimmy Kimmel, he could lose his show, much like Stephen Colbert, because the money doesn't add up. And as for the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, I believe he still has some time left on his contract, so they can't really go to that either. Seth Meyers, we know he already lost his musical crew that was on there performing on the show. He doesn't have that anymore. And I don't know how long that show is going to last because, I mean, Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers, they're not performing well either. Their numbers are not good either. And it's amazing that NBC puts so much in the late night anyway. It just, I don't know how they do it and how they figure it out. So Deadline also reports late tonight that there's been many virtual meetings, Disney executives and Kimmel's team, talking about the Under the Cloud of Kimmel being pulled off the air. And they're trying to go and secure a pathway that all parties can shoulder on ending the indefinite benching of the Jimmy Kimmel Live frontman and easing the company's concerns about further MAGA backlash. One insider told Deadline, quote, "It's an ongoing discussion with a lot of distrust on one side. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. So we don't know what's going to go on with this." Now, there's been a lot that's been said by other hosts out there showing reference and support for their fellow late night talent and going through all that. I could care less about all that part. But I think what's going to happen is time will pass and Jimmy Kimmel's people just need to go and get together and say, listen, ABC was trying to keep your show from getting canceled altogether. So they had to go and respond to the pressure. Like, no matter what you say, the pressure's there. They had to respond to it. So now let's just go and do something to go ahead and move forward. Find a way to keep the show on the air. They'll figure out some short-term solution right now and then move forward. And once Jimmy Kimmel gets back on, we won't even care anymore. It'll have gone. But this is a lesson to be said that, late night TV has a short shelf life left. Much like newspapers, much like a lot of other things in media, there's just something of a past time. We don't have Johnny Carson. We don't have Dick Cavett. We don't have Merv Griffin. Okay, we don't have those shows. We don't have Jack Parr. None of that. Late night TV is dying. And I don't count Greg Gutfeld as late night TV because 10 o'clock is not late night. But I think that at some point, if network TV is not doing well, if they want to go ahead and shorten their prime time, remember they had the idea where Jay Leno was going to move up to 10 o'clock at night? And they tried to do that for like 5 nights a week. It didn't work then, but I can see them trying to do it again if they wanted to do that. Put something on late night and start at 10 o'clock and make that what would be a late night program to go up against something like a Gutfeld or something like that. I can see that happening because people are not necessarily watching network TV all the way through the night. They're not watching past the local news, I guess. And that's quite interesting about that. Because the other part is that, I don't know how many laughs you get on that. Because here's the thing. If the late night shows were performing well, you see them go viral. You see clips all over the place. Saturday Night Live, their clips do get viral. They do get laughs. And so people are watching that show. And the ratings are good for that show. So obviously, something's being done right on that. But these other shows, late night talk shows, you're expected to go and you've always watched them for comedy or something of an entertainment value, something lighthearted to get you past the rest of the day. It's not like that anymore. I mean, it's one thing to be serious, like, if you want to watch Charlie Rose or Tom Snyder, I guess, but not now. That's all changed. Now let's finally get into the anime stuff, because like I said, that was fascinating to watch. A full house to watch Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, Infinity Castle. Last week, it topped the U.S. box office $70 million. $70 million bucks. Box office record in domestic sales for that movie. It was a long movie. Like when I looked at, other anime movies, just to give a little background on what I've watched, I did watch the last Demon Slayer movie. I forget the name of the extra part of it was. I did watch One Piece. There was 2 movies of One Piece, right? No, sorry, there was a Dragon Ball Z movie. I saw Broly, and I saw the other one after that. And then there was a One Piece movie. I saw that, and I forget what else. But it's like, when they've been out there, I've tried to catch it. I wanted to watch Attack on Titan. Couldn't find it. And when there have been other anime movies, I wanted to catch those too, but I haven't caught them. It just kind of lucked out. Now I'm trying to go through some of the movies that are out there that I did watch. So I did watch One Piece film Red. I did see Dragon Ball Superhero. The other one I saw was Kimetsu no Yaiba to the Hashira training. I did see that one. That was last year. So like I said, I don't keep up with this. I don't know the storylines. I don't know the characters. But I'm fascinated by watching these movies. And that's what I do, man. It's like, okay, why not? Now, Crunchyroll is the major supplier of these movies. And let's just give you the idea of what these movies have done so far. Because they've only starting to put out movies for a large audience. Now, of the ones they put out that they at least grossed $1 million domestically, you have Sword Art Online, the movie, Progressive Scherzo of Deep Night. I was looking for that movie. I think they only had a very limited release anyway, so I couldn't find it. Blue Lock, the movie, that was the one that was like, I remember I can't remember what it was called, but I remember it was like this, it was like an academy, like a spy thing or whatever. I forget what it was, but I remember it was like a training thing as well. Or unless that's the soccer one. I don't remember. Then there's One Piece film Red. I did see that. There was another Demon Slayer movie I must have missed because that was To the Swordsmith Village. I missed that one. And then Dragon Ball Superhero, which was also pretty good. But then also what was out there, and I forget who it was that ran it, but Dragon Ball Z Broly. That was the one that really picked the lock of like movies coming out and making a big deal. Because that was the one that I remember catching. It was one of the first times I saw one of those anime movies that I saw, like it was based on one of those Toonami episodes. And that right there was like, my goodness. It was gangbusters. Full house. And everybody was all into it. Like I was just fascinated by that. Dragon Ball Super Broly. That was 2014, December 14th. $122 million worldwide. An amazing number of what you have. Yeah, when they went Super Saiyan, the crowd went wild. It's like when you saw all three Spider-Mans. When the Super Saiyan started off, they were like, man, this is crazy. And that's what everybody was all into. And they were just cheering like crazy. But the one thing is, these movies don't have a large production budget. $8.5 million for that budget in particular. And to think this movie beat The Conjuring last weekend. The biggest opening ever for the genre by a huge margin. Amazing. And there's a chance that even this weekend, because it's a week setup of movies coming out this weekend, that Demon Slayer might hit number 1 again. It's amazing. But it's also a larger story to be said. So you got A Big Bold Beautiful Journey, him and the senior, they're all coming out this weekend. And Demon Slayer might continue to win again because they can. It's amazing. Now, the one thing that helps is that when it comes to all of the movie studios, when they can't find any intellectual property of their own that's going to make money, Sony Entertainment was able to go and do something here where they are distributing these movies, putting them out on a lot of screens to get it out there, and they're realizing the crowds are coming for it. Flocking to see this movie. This was like a Marvel-sized line in concessions and a packed house in RPX, which is, 250 seats in there, full. And it was doing very well all weekend. Amazing. And Latin America has already made a $29 million opening. Europe, $17 million. Middle East, $6 million. India, $5.2 million. And for India, that was the biggest opening weekend for an animated or anime film. And like I said, the movies that are coming out, you would think they were going to do pretty well. Margot Robbie, Colin Farrell, Big Bold Beautiful Journey. They promoted that for months now. And not a lot of promotion behind it, but I've seen quite a few trailers of it, so I know what it's about. And him, looks like another Jordan Peele movie, but I've seen that also a lot. But the problem is with him is that the ratings are bad. Like, the reviews are horrible. I think it started off with 36% on Rotten Tomatoes already on the critic side. So it doesn't look like it's doing very well. But yeah, at the moment, last check, Infinity Castle, overall worldwide distribution, it's got $467 million. $500 million for an anime movie. That is huge. And I thought, when I started seeing some of those other movies that came out and doing as well as they did, I'm not surprised by that. So when it comes down to it, keep an eye on Crunchyroll and what other movies are out there in the anime realm, because they're doing really well. Plus, it's not just the fact that where it's Crunchyroll that was doing the movies, getting them out to movie distribution, but now you got Sony Pictures behind it, and they're making some money off of it. And Sony Pictures, by the way, to have the Marvel franchise with all Spider-Mans, Men in Black, Jumanji, among the other movies that they also carry, and to see now that they're getting a share into the mix now with anime is something amazing. Because right now for Sony Pictures, Demon Slayer is the highest grossing movie they have this year. Incredible. And they've put out 20 movies this year. This right here, domestically, it's doing gangbusters right now. Number one movie they have right now is Demon Slayer. That's big. It's also gotten to the point where New York Times has actually been reporting about this as well. It's the fourth film, Infinity Castle, of a Japanese epic about a boy avenging his family. And the film industry has been investing heavily in anime, so much that its distinctive style is now seemingly everywhere. So you got to remember, at first, the movie studios did not necessarily want to go ahead and run the animes themselves because they didn't think a mainstream audience would actually go into it. So when you saw Akira, you saw it in live action. When you saw Ghost in the Shell, you saw it in a live action. And there was a lot of complaints about, well, there's not Asian actors that are performing this. But now we're at the point where the audience is now mature enough, or at least the audience we have now in this generation, they want to see the movies in their way, okay? The other thing, too, is interesting to me is that when you go catch these movies, if you want to catch it in a dubbed version, or if you want to catch it with subtitles, I've actually watched it with subtitles. I don't have a preference on either one. But I already see now that the dubbed versions are the ones that people go to. That's what they flock to. And, okay, fine. So they did. Channing Tatum was one of the voices of the dubbed version of Demon Slayer. I didn't realize that until later. But, yeah, it's interesting. If for animation aficionados, we have the types of animation that's been out there. And, in a way you feel like some of what anime does is a bit of a limited animation style that the Hanna-Barbera folks used to do back in the day. But this is much more perfected and much more stylish, and the quality is just amazing on it. So first is the mangas, the comic book versions that they have that go into becoming their own versions after that. You had Funimation that started becoming very popular with doing this kind of stuff. And then Crunchyroll, the largest global anime streaming service, started distributing animes from the mid-1990s and started changing things up. And they have done a lot of work where you get dubbing. And the thing was that this Japanese content being prepared for Western audiences, they've done a good job of it. And there have been certain animes that have taken up the popularity, and that's where you also see where it comes in. At one point it was Toonami and Cartoon Network that really, and Adult Swim, that everybody was really flocking to those shows. Now it's Crunchyroll or somewhere else they can find anime, or in Netflix, as we say. And it's not just limited to Crunchyroll and to what Sony Pictures is distributing, because look at what K-Pop Demon Hunters is doing for Netflix right now. And it got to movie theaters, and it performed. Keep that in mind too. This summer, the end of the summer, was not consumed with any large, big budget movie. No, not at all. That happened earlier in the year. Now, the end of summer, August into September, it's been anime movies. It's amazing. So Funimation was getting themselves together to get the anime ball rolling to mainstream, to America. Funimation tried to shop Dragon Ball Z networks, the networks like ABC. That passed. And the thing is just that the networks didn't think they could go and put the kind of shows that are like anime out there. I mean, they did. They did have Astro Boy. They did have Speed Racer, things like that. But, and then later than that, we had Sailor Moon. But it wasn't something that everybody would go out there to go and catch. Or Gigantor, right? Daniel Kokenauer, a founder of Funimation, talked about that this episodic style stuff. It doesn't work in the U.S. You recall the network saying Dragon Ball Z would end up being the first blockbuster anime series on American television. Toonami, Adult Swim's late night weekend programming slots, or their slate, they picked up the first 56 episodes of Dragon Ball Z for a daily after-school broadcast that started in 1998. Immediate hit. And in 1 year, it became the number one show on Cartoon Network and helped take them from 40 million to 80 million households. And a few years after the Toonami debut, the series helped make Funimation the fifth largest distributor of VHS tapes and DVDs in the United States, just behind Columbia and Universal. So you have those kids going back that far, getting into anime. And then you had Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon finding success in America, and everything else that followed would just come into play. And I remember my friend Chuck, he exposing me all this stuff, and Inuyasha, Sword Art Online, Demon Note, Naruto, now Boruto, right? All that kind of stuff. It was amazing getting all caught up in that. And Bleach, among others. Pokemon would become a hit on the WB network soon after Dragon Ball Z and become the highest grossing media franchise in history, an ever-expanding universe of trading cards, toys, clothing, and branded snacks. I still remember not that long ago when Pokemon, the app, came out there and people started getting into that too. Like, just crazy. International revenues now represent more than half of the estimated $37 billion Japanese animation industry. North America, the largest market outside of Asia. And Gen Z is the American demographic that's watching the most. People in their teens and 20s for whom anime is synonymous with animation the way that Walt Disney was for baby boomers or Looney Tunes for people like me. And like I said, there's been times where you see the anime bug getting caught on and people are obviously paying attention to it. South Park doing several episodes, an arc of episodes with an anime look. Rick and Morty creating an anime version of their series. But these are the ones that are getting popular. Again, it's like the superheroes. Those are the animes right now that are getting the most traction. There are others, The Boy and the Heron. There's movies like My Neighbor Totoro that are, much more dramatic and not so action-filled, that are also being very popular. The Studio Ghibli stuff, that gets critically acclaimed stuff. And it's shown in film festivals and things like that. But it's gotten popular. And I'm fascinated by the fact that this is something, when you have a mainstream that is dying right now at the vine, what comes up now out from under the mainstream, but actually crosses over? Because that's what's happening right now. It's not like anybody's helping out with this, but anime has crossed over into the mainstream ether. The fact that movie theaters now can benefit and can profit from anime. Dragon Ball Z Broly was the first movie that I saw that really made that difference. That was December 2018. And all of a sudden, I look at them saying, it's just growing. It's blowing up. And so I do catch these movies when they come out because I'm fascinated by it. Blue Lock, Demon Slayer, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, fascinated by it. Of course, One Piece has their own live action series right now. They're trying to do that, but the live action doesn't really work out as much as the animated. But I think everybody's gotten used to watching it. My only thing with Demon Slayer was it was too long. The formula is fine, but it was long. There's a lot of different individual stories they're going through. And I was pretty much into it for the first hour, 45 minutes. But then it just felt a little bit repetitive. Yeah, they're Infinity Cast and they have all these different people they have to go and fight. But when the action just keeps stopping, and then we get intermission with another backstory. The intermission backstories, it just kept taking the momentum away from me. I know that the Japanese audience probably could appreciate that, and also the audience that watches anime regularly on the television series itself before they see these feature films. I can see that part, but for me, the momentum as an older fan, I don't get that stop-start kind of stuff. That kind of takes me away. Who knows? Maybe I'll go ahead and watch more of it. I don't know what I'll do. I would try to watch it this Saturday if I had time, but there's just too much going on. I got to do wrestling podcasts this weekend, so I don't have time for it. But I did watch it this past Friday. If it's still around, I'll figure it out. But there's other movies I got to catch, and there's just Saturdays are just tough right now because I don't have football season, and there's other things going on, and I can't commit to another night at the movie theaters right now. Just don't have the time for it, so it's okay. Okay, now that we're all past those two major headlines, I wasn't gonna wait and to do the anime stuff the next week. I just wanted to get both of these stories in here this week, so you get an extended version of Broadcasters Podcast. Welcome to that. All right, now, interesting story from Sean Ross on radio at radioinsight.com, radio INSIGHT.com, which will make sure I make credit where credit's due. He puts out an article asking, is the preteen audience golden or toxic? So he says that, broadcasters have actually wanted the listeners who asked them what they liked. And we were happy if they showed up by osmosis or if the music we were playing for their parents worked for them as well as it did in 1998 or 2010. But radio and teens are out of each other's consideration sets by seemingly mutual agreement. If radio decided to give teens what they wanted, where would they start with? With Tyler, the Creator, female singer-songwriters your niece likes who might be variously found on TikTok or AAA radio, classic rock, Connie Francis? What would you put on? And then he asked about, the argument would be about whether Top 40 should acknowledge teens, much less cater to them, has been playing out to the generations. So the bubblegum pop explosion, if you were listening in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, there's just certain acts that would just say, well, this is why I went to rock, this is why I went to rap. Things like that. Well, not rap at that time, but you know what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. Phases of pop music sequentially makes it clear that what we've been talking about all along really has been about those acts that appealed to preteens and younger teens. And that's where we have right now with Huntress's Golden and the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack. I don't think it's a much younger audience. I don't think it's a significantly preteen audience. I don't think there's that because there's nothing being catered to preteen. The days of Nickelodeon and Disney Channel dominating with their own programming, that's gone. Again, just like late night TV, children's shows that fit to the preteen audience, that's also a dying breed. That doesn't happen anymore. We don't have Radio Disney anymore. That's another thing that we also talked about. And also one of my more popular episodes of my When I'm Not Podcasting episodes back in the day. He's talking about if Golden is considered a kid's record, and if you think so, then you might ask, so what if it is? If the song is abrasive or actively driving away listeners, that's one thing. If the answer is merely that some adults are indifferent to it, the rating suggests that there are a lot of songs we're playing that listeners of all ages are indifferent to as well. It's not. And so I will say that what we're getting out of Golden, I know for me, I haven't watched K-pop Demon Hunters. And so I've listened to the songs they have out there. There are other songs that are in here that absolutely give me a bubblegum feel to it, and I can't listen to it. Soda Pop from the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack, I can't listen to. I can't. Or how it's done. Also, very like Descendants Disney type. I can't listen to that. No. But there is some of that. Not surprised. But it's part of that thing where you're starting to realize there is the movie, and that's the thing where it's like, what radio's out there? You don't have a preteen audience, but you have music like Golden. You could be playing out there along with another set of music that is popular on TikTok and find a way to go and get to a younger audience. Because younger audience is into certain acts that are very pop friendly. They will listen to Sabrina Carpenter. They will listen to, K-pop acts like Cat's Eye or Blackpink, things like that. But those are also, I don't feel like those are teen groups either. Because the music doesn't have that kind of feel to it. I mean, especially with K-pop, their music is very much an EDM kind of feel to it, with a pop twist to it. And it's good. I mean, I think the quality of the music is pretty good. And that's why it's on my playlists. By the way, if you want some good playlists to listen to, I have 6 of them right now that I actually host on Spotify. And you can find the links to all of them on my website, kingofpodcasts.com. Kingofpodcasts.com. If you want to go and check that out, I hope you'll consider that. TikTok. 1 in 3 chart-topping hits in Germany got first viral on TikTok. So music going into the European ether, that's something that's very important because of how there is. So when it comes to TikTok and songs going viral, and then those songs, therefore, become chart-topping hits in Germany, the world's 4th largest recorded music market. They're seeing that 1 in 3 tracks that hit the top position on the charts went viral first on TikTok in 2024. More than 1 in 4 of the songs that made it to the German Top 100 singles chart in 2024 were first successful on TikTok, on average 13 days before entering the chart. When it comes to American music, TikTok also says the path to many chart successes begins on TikTok. They also made mention of Luminate, which works with Billboard. They said that over 50 catalog songs made their way onto the Billboard Global 200 via the platform in 2024, primarily hits from the 80s, 2000s, and 2010s. Songs like Ain't No Sunshine by Bill Withers, Linger by the Cranberries, celebrated debuts in the Global Top 200 after viral success on TikTok. Another great example, Alphaville's Forever Young turned 40 years old in 2024, and the band was rewarded with the attention of the TikTok community when the video was viewed millions of times, incorporated into their videos, and thus paved the way the song to get back on the charts. Amazing. And when songs get repurposed, Peter Schilling's Major Tom became the official goal anthem of the German national team for the European Football Championship. Became a hit again 42 years after release. Used in more than 80,000 video creations before entering the singles charts 43 years after his first appearance, setting a record, TikTok said. Peter Schilling, upon the announcement, says that, quote, music knows no boundaries, it connects generations, and it always finds new ways to touch hearts, end quote. TikTok last December released data that showing that 13 of the 16 tracks that reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 were linked in some way to a trend on TikTok. And 84% of the songs that reached the Billboard Global 200 in 2024 had gone viral on TikTok first. TikTok is important. Keep an eye on it. I'm surprised on how much music I'm finding right now from TikTok as a result, especially when they put that new thing in place where if you're an Apple Podcast or Spotify user and you connect your Spotify or Apple Podcast to TikTok, and then you can hit that little plus button to have like songs, and you can go ahead and collect songs that you hear on TikTok and instantly set them up so you can actually go and catch it on the platform and put it into your Spotify list so you can go look for it and put it on the playlist. Fascinating. I love it. And I've honestly done that to go and catch a bunch of artists because it goes right to your like songs list. And there are new artists that I've caught on right now that I was surprised by listening to. It's good stuff. I mean, TikTok has introduced me to a bunch of artists that I really enjoy. Avara, Davina Leon is a new artist right now. I remember when Leah Kate came out with, 10 Things I Hate About You, and I kept following her on there. A lot of stuff from Cat's Eye I found from TikTok. When it comes to Trinity Lake, I learned about Tori Halhoub, does an amazing, just sounds like the epitome of like if Karen Carpenter were alive. Her voice is like an angel. Stella Cole, who does like the Great American Songbook, she's fascinating. I love her. She sounds amazing. Natural voice singers. And there's others out there that do the same, but like I love that stuff. TikTok and then that gateway to Spotify is a wonderful, wonderful welcome thing for me. By the way, Spotify striking deals with Sony for records and publishing, improving songwriter royalties. And this is from Billboard. A new multi-year global partnership with Sony Music has been done by Spotify. They're the third and final major to sign new deals with Spotify this year. Two more stories I want to jump in on when it comes to YouTube. YouTube Music has now new tools to connect artists with super fans. A new suite of new tools to help better connect with and monetize their most dedicated fans. During the Made It on YouTube event on Tuesday, they announced this. So the features include new release countdowns and album pre-saves on YouTube Music, plus exclusive video and merch drops for top fans. Good stuff. Because the idea is then to let the album release cycle come in, create anticipation around upcoming releases. So YouTube Music has it set up right now. Spotify does a great job with that. Also, YouTube is doing a new video clip tool for podcasters. AI-powered tools to help podcasters promote and monetize their content more effectively. So the two key AI tools mentioned are AI-powered clipping for video podcasts and AI video generation for audio-only podcasts. But I mean, that's going to be nice to at least check it out. I'll go ahead and check it out for myself, at least for the audio-only podcast side, to see what kind of stuff they do with the AI video and see if it's any good. Otherwise, I can still keep doing what I'm doing right now. I'm fine with that anyway. It's not a problem for me. So this week, I'm going to go watch Afterburn. Olga Kurylenko, Dave Bautista, Samuel L. Jackson's in it, among that are in this movie. So we'll see if it's going to be any good. I know next week I got to watch One Battle After Another, Leo DiCaprio. That should be really good next week. And a lot of wrestling I got to do this weekend. So it's a busy, busy weekend for yours truly. Anyway, a lengthy Broadcasters podcast for all of you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Come back next week for another episode. Remember that content is king. Remember, don't do content you have to apologize for. And that the content is in your hands.